Hello, 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 everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all. So excited to kick off the Iconic Effect Live. It is going to be a really exquisite couple of days. And again, thank you for your patience as we, as we get a couple of tech issues resolved, because you know how you want to start an interview series? You want to wake up that morning to no internet and now a house crawling with technicians trying to make this work. So we're making it work. Thrilled that you are all here. I'm so teary excited for this series. It has been on my heart for probably about a year and a half, I would say. Year and a half I've been wanting to create this series, and so finally we are here doing this. So I'm going to start the series off. So there are going to be 6 interviews happening over the next 3 days, and on Thursday there's going to be a special Q&A session with me. Good to see some faces that I know. Thank you for the messages. We are really excited to kick off, but I wanted to frame things up a little bit as to why we have created this series. And then we're going to meet Gregg Potter, who is today's guest, the icon in the spotlight. Just super delighted to be here with you all. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I've got just a couple. My host, Amber Kinney, is going to need to make me I'm going to have my screen sharing turned back on. Please and thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Sorry for the late start again. Just having some tech challenges. It's not even Merc Retro, but whatever. Here we go, okay? Welcome, everybody, to the Iconic Effect Live. You'll want to be here live because you'll want to be able to ask my extraordinary guests all of your questions about what it's like to operate from their particular iconic identity. Good to see some faces that I know. Good to see some new faces. Hello. So here is the entire premise of the Iconic Effect live interview series. And that is this: what if the very thing that you thought was your challenge was actually your leadership edge and the very thing that makes you iconic? This is sort of the thesis that I've been working with for a couple of years now. And again, this interview series has been on my heart for about a year and a half. So I'm really excited about it. Hence the cheeks. Though Ramona sort of looks a little ambivalent over there. Trust me when I say that is not how I'm feeling. I'm very excited. Couple of house quote unquote rules. We are recording this whole series. So if you are unable, many folks have registered, hundreds of people registered. So lots of folks are going to be watching the replays of this. And you can just sit back and relax and just put your feet up, and you can come back to the recording. But be sure to stay to the end of each of the interviews so you can get your questions answered of these amazing folks. Please do stay off audio. Love to hear from you. There will be a couple of moments where I'll say share what's coming up for you, but try to stay off audio if you can, for all the reasons we know at this point with Zoom, right? So pop your questions in the chat and we'll get to them during the Q&A session of each of the calls. I have to say thank you, Amber Kinney, for being here with us on today's call and holding up the sides of the process. Later this afternoon, we're going to have Leslie joining us. So pop whatever questions you have in the chat, and Amber's going to hang on to those for us until the end. And please feel free to share whatever your learnings are coming up for you with the hashtag Iconic Identities. You'll probably want to wait until after. Each of the interviews are only about a half an hour, so there's plenty of time. We do have closed captioning, so you should be able to see that option if that's important to you, or if that would be helpful for you. You should be able to see that option on your Zoom control panel. Relax. Thanks for joining. I'm doing the heavy lifting, not you. Just hang. Get to know a little bit more about yourself, because you must be wondering what to expect. So the whole point of this Iconic Effect Live is to share interviews, conversations with some of the most iconic folks that I know. Okay, like just really superlative folks who are doing some really meaningful things, and some of them maybe you know, and maybe some of the you don't. But really, my hope is that you get to know yourself better through the lens of their experience, through their stories, and that you get to know your own iconic nature, and even your own blend of different identities. If you've already done the quiz, which I'll link to in a minute, maybe you've already seen that just like Gregg, you're the host, just like me, you're the host. I hope that over the course of these 6 interviews, you're going to find that you're a little bit of all of the above. And then, of course, you know, as ever, I'm always inviting people to consider what becomes available through that identity, those identities. Okay. So today we're going to be meeting Gregg. Gregg is standing by. Hello, Gregg. Thank you for joining us from South Africa. Later today, we're going to be speaking with Asha Frost. Tomorrow, we're going to be meeting Mara and Marie. And then on Wednesday, we're going to meet Steph and Trisha. And then the final day, it's going to be me and only me talking, bringing this all together. So this here is really, this iconic identity is really where my work begins. It's helping folks to really, I used to use the language stepping into your starring role. And so that, what is my starring role, was sort of the underlying issue that most folks were challenged by. And so how do I create iconic impact and create an iconic legacy if I'm still stuck back in the space of identity? So that's really what this interview series is hoping to help alleviate. So a little bit about me, because some new folks to my work. Hello, hello. I am a leadership coach, writer, TEDx women speaker, podcast host. My podcast is on hiatus, but this Iconic Effect Live series is going to kick off my relaunch. The podcast that you will see in the archives is ready enough, and just an incredible series of speaking with folks who experience the imposter complex at different intersections than I do. I acknowledge that I live and work on the land of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee people, who are still living and working on these lands as well. Since 2007, I still cannot believe that date. I've coached thousands of leaders, and I've spoken to tens of thousands from many, many different stages. I say that to let you know that I've kind of seen, I've seen pretty much all of it. I've seen so many different people and how they have interacted with the imposter complex, maybe how it's been maybe misdiagnosed. So I've seen the gamut, I guess, is the reason I share that. I am what you would call a reluctant expert on the imposter complex, meaning I'm looking for this. I did not go looking for this work. This work came looking for me. That's how the universe kind of works. When you decide you're really interested in something, you're going to get tested on the regular. So that's why I say I'm a reluctant expert in the imposter complex. You know, I'd love to be more of an expert on joy, but imposter complex seems to be my body of work. And I fundamentally believe that we need to stop blaming individuals for this experience and focus on changing systems, which of course requires us to step fully into our own innate power to be able to do so, which the imposter complex is not interested in. So it's a bit of a paradox here. So, I also must acknowledge the lens from which I approach this work as a white, neurotypical, able-bodied woman of middle-class means living in North America. So this might not be your lived experience, and it's for that reason that I really like to speak with other teachers, other folks who understand and who work with folks with the imposter complex in other ways to make sure that you find your teacher. Okay? All right. So, iconic. What do we understand iconic to mean? It's a big word. It's a very big word. So I feel like we're talking about someone who is irreplaceable, one of a kind, influential, recognizable. I hope that Gregg's ears are already starting to burn a little bit. Recognizable, beyond compare, indelible, and unapologetic. That's what I understand iconic to mean. So these folks, arguably all icons, however you feel about them, we would probably not debate that they are icons. I really wanted, I do a lot of work with personal advisory boards, and I help people figure out, who they look up to. And I really thought it'd be much more helpful, though, to have people that are closer in proximity to you, people that you can actually connect with. Again, that's the reason for this interview series. But you can't spell iconic without IC twice. Okay, you can't spell iconic without imposter complex twice. So I really have to do a very quick overview of what imposter complex is, so we can just have some shared language here. So imposter phenomenon is the term coined by clinical psychologist Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes back in 1978. They were working with high achieving, high functioning women at Oberlin College and saw that these women seemed to be incapable of internalizing their success. Any success they had, they would chalk up to luck, fluke, timing, or having somehow managed to convince people they're smarter or more capable than they actually were. We also know that there is a bioevolutionary context to this experience. It's intended to make sure we don't mutate too quickly, and it's actually part of our very human and essential need to belong. And I don't think there's a single icon that I'm going to be interviewing over this interview series who doesn't center their work around the sense of belonging in some way, shape, or form. So we know that it affects high functioning, high achieving individuals with strong values of proficiency and integrity that we're going to be talking about today, and excellence. And they're always generally on the precipice of doing something new, something exciting, something meaningful, something great. And it is most prevalent and disproportionately affects folks who are underrepresented, or let's call it systemically excluded people, and who have been marginalized as well. Okay, I think that's really important, and I think we do not spend enough time naming that experience. We know that the imposter complex has three main objectives. It wants to try to keep you out of action, right? You're doing some really amazing stuff, wants to keep you out of action, it wants to have you doubt your capacity, and it wants to try to keep you alone and isolated. Okay, so again, if you're new to my work, I'm kind of blasting through this a little on the quick side because I've been talking about this for a long time, and you can just fill your boots with lots of good content over at tanyageisler.com. And you can check out my 12 Lives of the Imposter Complex. And I'm open to whatever questions that you have about the imposter complex experience, to be certain, really at any time. And Thursday, when it's just me and the focus is on this work, we can get into the nitty-gritty a little bit more. So here's how it goes about these things: keeping you out of action, doubting your capacity, and alone and isolated. It has you hide out in 6 specific behavioral traits, or really coping mechanisms: people-pleasing, leaky boundaries, comparison, diminishment, procrastination, and perfectionism. Okay, so all of these things, these are the ways it's going to try to keep us out of action, doubting our capacity, and alone and isolated. So I invite everybody to, after our interview with Gregg, check out tanyageisler.com/quiz to see which one of these behavioral traits tends to be the most up for you. And that's also going to show you your iconic identity, the one that is most likely for the exact moment in this moment of your life, because all of the identities that we're going to talk about affect us in lots of different ways. So my readership tends to largely experience diminishment, with people pleasing being quite up, procrastination and people pleasing being quite up there. But you can see it's a little bit of everything. And we kind of these behavioral traits, we kind of ping pong off of them from time to time. So we figure out how to get over our diminishment, but then up pops something else. So there's a huge body of work that backs all of this up. And of course, I'm very happy to talk about it, but I want to move over to our conversation with Gregg. So if you consider which of those, the behavioral traits are up for you, and then you consider the way in which you've been made to feel wrong about being a perfectionist or a people pleaser, I invite you to consider that the personal development market is a $42 billion industry. $42 billion industry. That is a lot of money invested in making sure people feel lousy about themselves, right? Stop being a perfectionist. Stop being a people pleaser. Welcome, welcome, folks who are just joining us. Lots of money riding on folks feeling badly about themselves. So I really want to try to do something different, okay? If we consider what those behavioral traits offer us, that there might be something useful, valuable, delicious, a golden light, in fact. What if we saw that these behaviors are relational, that they're relational attributes, which is a good thing? What if we saw that they weren't inherently problems per se? And what if we saw the golden shadow that they hold? In fact, what if we saw that each of these behavioral attributes holds our own innate, unique leadership edge, and that they are actually the key to unlocking your own iconic identity or blend therein? So, what if we saw that people-pleasing led to a value of inclusivity, which indicated the host identity? That's going to be our Gregg. What if we saw that leaky boundaries showed our value of generosity, and that indicated the healer identity? That's our Asha Frost. What if we saw comparison really underscored our value of connection? That's going to be the Maven identity, and that's our Marie Poulin. Diminishment speaks into a value of humility, which is the visionary iconic identity. Procrastination might simply mean that you have a deep value of discernment, which points us to the sage identity. That's going to be our Steph. And finalement, perfectionism really underscores our value of excellence, and that's going to be our Trisha Bolender. Okay, so this is a big framework, and I'm just letting you know you do not need to know this. There is definitely no quiz on this, but I just want you to understand the framework that I'm perpetually operating from. I feel like for us to be iconic, we really need to root into integrity and presence and take decisive action. So for us to be an integrity that requires us to be loyal to our vision, we must honor our word to ourselves, and we must be able to show up authentically. For us to root into presence, this means that we are required to understand our deep power. Ooh, that's always a bit of a catch. That we can be with support, ask for it, receive support, and that we hold ourselves with reverence. And then if we're going to stay in action, we need to be willing to fail. We need to show ourselves resilience, and we need to bolster our tenacity. Okay, so these are the different aspects. And today we're going to be talking about, that's just day one of icon. I'll just move off because you don't need to see that. Day one, we're going to be exploring integrity. So we have a strong foundation, which can become compromised when people-pleasing and leaky boundaries are in the way. So again, we're going to be talking about, we're going to be speaking with the host today, that's Gregg, where we talk about people-pleasing, okay? So if you are the host, like Gregg, like me, then you are generally the host with the most. You are deeply relational and gather people with ease and attend to their needs with style and flair and care. People love being around you because, by definition, you are a crowd pleaser. Sometimes you might find yourself missing out on the metaphorical or literal party and the conversations because you're stuck in the kitchen, serving out the hors d'oeuvres, refreshing all the drinks all the time. The double bind of making sure that you fit in only to discount belonging because they like you, right? They're just being nice. This can be the double bind for the host. You might find yourself over-explaining to everyone in an attempt to bridge connection. You may assign your value to the opinions of others. Is that for us hosts? And sometimes you can feel frustrated because you don't know what you yourself want because you're forever trying to attend to other people's needs, whether they've asked you to or not. And this can be exacerbated if you have any hypervigilance in your being from, trauma or other experiences. Okay, so if you are a host, just like me, just like Gregg, do not forget that your place is in the party, that folks have come to see and be with you, not just the fabulous hors d'oeuvres that you serve, that you matter for who you are and not just how you make people feel. Caretaking is not actually your job. It's just not your job. And you are not to water down your magic to make other people feel comfortable. So we've got Nigella and Padma, and we also have Gregg as our beautiful, iconic representation. So a couple of mantras for you. If you are the host, you will not find your self-worth in the opinions of others. That is simply not where the divine put it. And also, I'm not responsible for sourcing other people's joy. Please remember that. You are not responsible for sourcing other people's joy. Just want to touch on this really quickly to let you know, because I'm going to be doing this every day. I'm going to do a little bit of a framing for the context that we're exploring. So today we're exploring integrity. So even though Gregg and I won't necessarily touch too much on boundaries, I'm sure it'll come up a little bit. We're going to talk about leaky boundaries later today with Asha Frost. So where people pleasing is about the host, the leaky boundaries are about the healer. So you are a study in generosity. If you got healer on the quiz, you give what you have, and your kindness and magnanimity make the world go round. And Amber, if you haven't already, please pop the quiz in the chat. You share your resources, your time, and your energy with care and thoughtfulness for the greatest good, and we give thanks to you, dear healer. While it's true that generous people have more to give, it's even more true that resourced people have more to give. So if you don't attend to your resources, you may find yourself resentful at best and burnt out at worst. You do not need to take a back seat or stay small for others to heal. I know, big stuff Monday morning. So don't forget, if you're a healer, to include yourself in your own circle of care, that sometimes you must say no so that your yeses have much greater meaning. By respecting your own boundaries, you teach others to respect them as well. And you embody a kind of integrity that is irresistibly magnetic. You have a capacity, you have an abundance of resources and capacity, but it ain't infinite. And that you must stay open to the possibility that they actually aren't that hard to maintain. Okay, so here are some of our healer icons, and Asha Frost, who you're going to be hearing from later today. So your mantra is, I'm complete as I am if you're the healer. Day 2, we're going to be talking about presence. So we're going to explore the maven and the visionary identities. And then day 3, we're going to be talking about action, and we're going to explore the sage and the CEO identities. Okay, so that's what I wanted to just offer you as a sort of framing all of these luscious conversations we're going to have over the next couple of days. But without further ado, I'm so excited to get to introduce you to Gregg Potter. Gregg is just an extraordinary human that I had the pleasure of meeting pre-pandemic. And he is he invited me to come talk to at an event that he had put on in Madison, Wisconsin. I've not coached him. He's the coach in his own right. He's just extraordinary human, very warm, gregarious, knows about hosting as much as anybody else. And what else I want to say about his work? Yeah, he's calling in from South Africa, which is just so extraordinary. He's actually there right now hosting an event, and he's going to probably tell us a little bit more about this, but he is a collaboration coach who is devoted to supporting and deconstructing how we lead and design collaborations, which I do not think we have enough models of possibility for that. So when I was thinking about who I wanted to invite, it was absolutely our Gregg. So Gregg, will you please join me? Here you are.
Hi, hello, Tanya.
Gregg Potter. I am so happy to see you. Did you get something out of the way I framed that up?
Oh yes, and I really, I of course started tearing up. I loved when you're talking about the imposter complex finding you, and that's how my collaboration worked. It found me, like there was no way. And then I also giggled because I was like, this is a great treatment for an HGTV television. Watch these two hosts battle it out, and who can be nicer?
Who can be nicer? Oh boy. Oh, maybe we'll go like a star system. Which one of the hosts is going to be nicer? Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I did proper justice. Our mutual friend Sarah Alvarado connected us. Sarah's a total maven, like, I mean, a serious connector of people. And it was so adorable when she was telling me, not adorable, that sounds diminutive. She was telling me about this event that you're putting on about the imposter syndrome. And she's like, I don't understand how Gregg doesn't know your work. I don't understand how you don't know Gregg's work. So she was so indignant about it, and then insisted that we connect. And I thought how great that was. And I just the best time with you. And that was a beautiful event that you put on. So thank you.
Oh, and that was quite a while ago. So, well, thank you. And I'm just going to plug Sarah quick. She just published a new book.
She sure did.
Go search her out and support her. So
Dreaming in Spanish. I got to do an endorsement for, so I read it months ago. Oh my gosh, so fantastic. So fantastic. Okay. Hi, host. Hello, my dear friend host. So the kind of interesting thing is when I invited Gregg to represent the icons of the hosts that I know, I think maybe you thought that I wanted you to host this entire event, which I thought, well, actually, that would make a lot of sense because you just are such an impeccable host.
It's very similar to other requests I get. So I was like, okay, Tanya loves me. Okay, I'll go do it. But also Tanya's the host.
All right, let's talk a little bit about, well, let's talk as much as you want to. People pleasing. Yeah, let's just talk about people pleasing.
Dive right in, don't you?
Let's just dive right in. So what's the upside of people pleasing, would you say?
The upside of people pleasing is exactly why we do what we do. We get to hold space for people and really shepherd them through whatever experience is going on, whether it's a party or coaching, or the people pleasing really is meeting that. So it's one less thing for them to worry about, and they like it's that. So that's the good thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
The other side is exactly what you pointed out, is when people don't need us, then we fall apart and we don't think that we have any self-worth if we haven't done our work with therapy and whatever else that you need to do your work. When you were talking about that in the intro, I immediately thought to a time in graduate school where I had facilitated this huge Hurricane Sandy relief program, and then it was done. And I felt the most disconnected, the most worthless piece of person that my soul was so empty. It's like, oh, no one needs me anymore. And it's that for me, that's the other side of people pleasing that can, and then also you lose your resources if you don't keep control of how much people pleasing you do.
Right. Like, can you say a bit more about that?
You completely, it's similar to the healer and leaky boundaries. You start depleting your energy to, especially if you have not done your work. And even though I've done my work, I still do this all the time. Right now I'm running a leadership program for 2 weeks. And if I don't make sure that I have 30 minutes at the end of the day when they all are finished with dinner, that I just decompress and do my meditation, or in the morning to make sure my other work is done, I will be completely exhausted. And then I turn from the host to like the gremlin, and I can catch it, but sometimes it still gets a little short, and that's not how I ever want to show up. And as a coach, one of the things, especially when I am coaching teams through collaboration work, my favorite question is, how do you want to show up in this moment? And so if I don't ask myself that when I've depleted my resources, it could all go downhill very quickly.
Yes, so get that. I so get that. I was thinking about one of the things that has become really clear to me as a host is at a certain point, I recognized that I was required to give myself some, medicine days after a big effort, whether it was a speaking gig or hosting a retreat or something that took a lot of effort. But what's become newly apparent to me is I actually need sort of like that kind of pre-care time. There's like and this is brand spanking new to me as I'm navigating my resources differently, this stage of life, post-pandemic. And in the follow-up, I'll make sure that there's a teacher that I heard talking about pre-care. So I want to make sure that I attribute to my teacher. So we'll make sure that we get that. I can't remember who that person is now, but I digress. But yeah, so just thinking like for you, that might be really important as well. So we're pretty good at like, oh, I'm at capacity, but how do we sort of increased capacity going into a big effort. Yeah.
Completely. I really, really resonate with that too. Like perfect right now, I normally would get into country a few days before a group would get here. I got here the same day one of the group got here. So I was on right away with dealing with jet lag. And if we want to go more into like the scenario of hosting a party, you know, if you plan it out right, you can give yourself time to get ready slowly before everyone, all the guests arrive, breathe, watch a Netflix show, meditate, whatever you need. But that is the pre-care that I see when going into
I love
proper
that.
hosting.
I love that. And actually, that's one of my favorite moments of the party. We just hosted a dinner party on Saturday, so it was really up for me. That couple of minutes before they arrive, and the house is clean, and everything is done, and the flowers are like everything is. That's I love that so much. This time though, I was shocked. Somebody knocked on the door at exactly the arrival time. Turns out it was a package, and I was so relieved. And I was just actually saying that, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, thank goodness, thank goodness. So I went, sat back on the couch, and then our guests arrived like 30 seconds later. I was like, ah. Anyway, we had a lovely time. They also know, they're like, okay, next time we'll give you a couple more of those minutes. So have you always known that you were this host? Like, have folks always gravitated towards you as the host, the gatherer of the people?
Kind of. I didn't realize it until hindsight. You know, I was in my 30s and realized, oh, I'm really good at creating space and holding space for people to create authentic, genuine bonds and experiences that really change how they think, how they feel, how they move forward in life. And with that hindsight, I realized even at a young age, my birthday parties, like at 16, 17, 18, they were not normal teenager birthday parties. Like they were very like taken care of, holistic. Even to the point where my mom and my grandma and parents would be, everyone wouldn't have to anything to do, and they would be, they would feel seen and heard and held. And so yeah, I have been doing this for a long time. But also there are childhood pieces of that though, that like having to adult earlier than, and those are therapy things, having to adult earlier and hold space for adults as a child, that comes into creating the host
Sure.
sometimes.
Sure. You just reminded me of something, and I don't know that, yeah, I'd say this is part of the same people pleasing host sort of house. I definitely remember feeling like it was my job to bring the sunshine, right?
Mhm.
And actually, sometimes I think my parents were a bit more cognizant of it, but I do remember one time, this is such a strange, but we had those saloon doors on our kitchen. They were so much fun. The saloon doors, the swingy
Yeah.
doors. I remember one time just being like, okay, guys, you got this. I could tell that like there was like a hard conversation happening. So I threw open the saloon doors. I guess that's what I meant to say, saloon doors. And I remember singing, oh joy, oh happy day. Like everybody had just been waiting for me to turn on the sunshine. And my mom was like, you don't have to do that. Like, you really don't have to do that. But I got that on some level that was really important, which has been my work. It's so it's beautiful to know that your presence is valued, also pretty weighty, right?
And I think though that's part of the process of getting to what I'm about to say is faith and trust. Having the faith and trust that you are going to bring the joy, even if you're not at a 10 that day,
Yeah.
because part of being the host is we get energy from the people that we are with and the people that we are hosting, and we see the joy in their eyes, and we instinctively know how to elevate it, and it subconsciously know how to elevate. Like it just happens. We have the something in our head that just says, oh, we need this now, or we need to turn the music up a little bit. We need to turn the lights down, or Samantha needs to be asked how her day was. Like
Yeah.
something clicks, and it comes because we hopefully can get to a place where we trust and have faith in our in the abilities.
Yeah, I love that. Um, about a million years ago, before I did my TEDx talk, I remember my friend Julie Daly, who also did her TEDx talk the same day as me. We were sort of like, what's your best piece of speaking advice? What's the thing you need to know? And her offering to me was trust the intelligence in the room. And I really got that on a like an energetic cellular level. Like it's about just being responsive to what's happening in the environment. Have you had your human design revealed? Are you a generator?
Say that a little bit more.
More specifically,
Yeah.
slowly. Okay. No, human design. Do you know much about human design?
As in, like, are you speaking of disc or those different?
No, there's this very specific.
Sorry.
I should not have brought that in, but if you know human design, many hosts, people pleasers tend to be generators, meaning your energy is actually generates energy for other folks. I'm not a human design teacher, so I don't talk about this very much, but I also understand that on a fundamental level too. And when I get that my energy, it's my job to maintain my energy and be mindful of it, that will help me to stop doing the things that I'm not supposed to do. So for instance, my sister very recently moved. And so she wanted me to, help move. And of course I would do whatever my sister wanted, but I'm not a great box mover, but I can make a fantastic charcuterie board. And like, trust me when I tell you that's what you want at a moving situation. You want my charcuterie board, you want me to like bring the music, you want me to bring the fun. But the moment I start moving boxes and I, break a nail or whatever, drop it on my foot, like that's not the Tanya that you want. So sometimes I think it's important for us to recognize what it is that we are bringing our best to. So how does host parlay into your work as a collaboration coach?
uh, well, first I'm going to say part of host is sometimes there's a piece of hosting that, and I you might want to add a little bit to this, that I've recognized that you also open up things and mirror things to people that they don't necessarily want to see, because you're hosting the space for a journey or for their movement or for whatever's needed. Because what part of that subconscious piece that we have is, oh, we also know how to take care, like we know how to take care of people and what is going to feed someone. And so with the collaboration coaching work, I often will get, a CEO or large teams that are working on, a huge collaboration, and to stop them, which they don't want to do, and reflect and mirror things to them and hold that space and be stern with that space until everyone can get through it and work with it. That's where that's one of the biggest spaces that my hosting piece comes in.
Okay. Yes, a couple things here. One, when I was sharing that piece about like throwing open the saloon doors, what I got at maybe 6, 7 was that sense of, seriously, like maybe 7, 8. I remember thinking, oh, there's an interesting, I don't know that I would have named it as arrogance, but like, why did I think that I was the one who had to change, to turn all of this around? And I think that was the first time that I kind of got, oh yeah, consent actually matters. And I feel like that's what you're speaking about too. Like, we're gonna go look at some places here. Not everybody is necessarily ready for it, but the people who are ready will have their hair probably blown back by what it is you're going to reflect back to them. I think that's a really important, like, underlining, underscoring that the consent matters. And again, naming some of the people pleasing that begets the host can be a response to your point about hypervigilance and like wanting to make sure that everything is tended to. And sometimes that's not our job necessarily, but our job is to reveal it with consent. Yeah, I get that.
And then also, and you mentioned this earlier in the introduction, but I think it's a very strong thing that needs to be reminded, is that we are not expected to bring the joy to them. That's part of their journey, whoever the people are that we're hosting. That's, and if it doesn't reach that outcome, we cannot beat ourselves up.
Yeah. So back to the collaboration coaching. This is not something that I had heard of before. I mean, I get it. It makes sense to me, like on a really fundamental level, but I've not heard anybody doing it or naming it as such until you. And then it was like, oh, well, of course, that's what Gregg Potter is doing. Can you, like, what was the genesis of it, and what does it look like?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it started about 7 years ago. I was sitting on the board of directors for this national conference called Impact, and they needed some filler workshops. And they said, Greg, can you put something together? And coincidentally, the same social change forum that you came to help work with us in Madison, the year before, the theme was collaboration. And so I was like, well, I'll do a collaboration workshop for the social change forum, and then I'll adjust it for what impact needs. And it started out with me being in the grocery store one day, turning how I watched the grocery store checkout line. And I'm like, gosh darn it, we are collaborating every single moment of our day, but we're not calling it collaborations. I'm watching us successfully go through the grocery store checkout line with vocabulary, with social norms, with nonverbal cues, with having our tools, with all of these things. Now, what happens if we can take those lessons from a universal experience like the grocery store checkout line and apply them to our intentional collaborations? And that's where the genesis started, and the curiosity and the desire to be a student on collaboration started. And it's just been growing since then. And I realized through some of my clients with Project Connect, which is a marketing firm that I have in Madison, I had been actually coaching them as a collaboration coach through different points in their work that they were hiring us to do. But I'm having these conversations with CEOs. I'm talking about silos and connecting silos. I'm talking about risk management with them, all at the basis of, if we can effectively collaborate better, we can create more impact and be more efficient with our teams and create trust at a level that we don't see that often, because it comes down to trust.
Because it comes down to trust. And you mentioned faith too. Okay, so I just want to go back to the grocery store for a second. That's so interesting. I've not heard you share that before. I'm sure you have shared it elsewhere, but it's so interesting because it's watching that line. It's true. There's no rules of engagement. There's no rules that are laid out. We understand it intrinsically, but we are all here for the same shared reason, right? We are what's that? Well, I often say at the beginning of any group that I do, we are in the same shared space, but not having the same shared experience, right? So, but like the idea being, we're at the grocery store, we just want to get our stuff and we want to pay and we want to get out. So those, I guess, are sort of three main objectives, but it's not like we have to enter into an agreement, though I guess our presence does. So when you talk about, as a collaboration coach, are you talking about, clarity of intention and vision and mission and like all of those important pieces, but with the grocery store, you're like, well, we don't actually have to state it there. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, how do you design all of that?
What it's evolved into
question.
is a training that I do called the life cycle of collaboration. So when I'm not coaching, I'm teaching this three workshop course, which is over the length of 3 months, so people really can dive into it. We have some great curriculum to go with it. But in the life cycle of collaboration, we still are able to utilize the grocery store checkout line, because, perfect example, how many collaborations have we been in? And I know many of people watching right now are going to agree to this, that we don't know the collaboration is over. Like,
Wow.
it's, and in the grocery store checkout line, you get your credit card receipt or you get your cash, and you know that it's done. You have your
Right.
grocery. And then in the life cycle, there's also evaluation. Like, I've made sure that measurement and evaluation is part of it, and celebration. So you walk out of the grocery store, you're celebrating that, one, you're done. Well, it's a Friday at 5:00. Yay, I'm through the grocery store.
Yeah.
Or I get to now go on to the next thing, and also evaluating, was everything good? Like, was it a good process? Do I need to call and make a complaint? Do I need to call and celebrate the cashier because they handled something extraordinary? So it's all in there. It's just pulling it out and maybe stretching a little bit, but it's there. And we do it effectively and brilliantly every single day
Oh my
across the
gosh.
globe.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's so great. So when you're working with the CEO, are you working with the CEO individually? You're working with or a founder, are you working with them individually, or you're working with them and their teams?
Both. I definitely coach individuals, and on the individual level, it's very conversation, role play, a lot of that to go back down to how is the CEO using their transformational leadership skills, their collaboration skills, and their conflict resolution skills, and applying also some facilitation work in there too, and asking them that. And it only sticks around the collaboration work and getting to the goals and objectives of their team. Now, when it comes to a team collaboration, I'm actually brought in to sometimes facilitate, sometimes have one-on-one coaching conversations with leaders of different segments, or a big one is in manufacturing, the sales team and the marketing team. For some reason, those two teams don't always get together, and we have some beautiful conversations about that. So that's what it looks like more on teams. And we've got other things to talk about. So I'll stop there.
Would you say that a lot of your folks, I want to make sure I'm not leading the witness here. Do you feel like hosts make better collaborators? And if so, never mind. Do hosts make better collaborators?
I think it depends, because we're more complicated than just to make that blanket statement.
Mhm.
I feel that there's a combination of host and healer that make the best collaborators.
Yeah, I would agree.
But hosts make excellent program managers, make excellent, as long as they know how to build trust, to hold space, and have humanity in their work.
I just have to say, I feel like one of the things that I think that what you do is, I think you show, if I may, I feel like you do show that mirror and let them know where they have the host within them. And I suspect that you work with people who are more in the CEO kind of maven realms, just in my vernacular, who maybe want to bring a little more of that host energy into their lived experience, into their work. That's what I would, if I were a betting woman, that's what I would probably swing out and say.
Yeah, I really love Bejoy Goswi's work on the human fabric, and he also uses the term maven. And I end up working with quite a few mavens, and we are if we were on the same team, we would butt heads, but we would create the best impact because we would work together to get through it. And often with CEOs, they don't want to listen to me, and I will be patient. I'm like, well, when you're ready to have this conversation, we'll have it. And until then, we'll keep working on these other skills. So, and
Right.
eventually everyone comes around, because we want goals and objectives to get met, and we want people to be loved and feel seen and feel heard at the end of the day. And it just, yeah.
That is the word. I love that celebration is an integral part of your process for our Canadians and our Americans, and all throughout the world. Everybody says it differently. Why do people resist celebration so much, Greg Potter?
Because they think they're being selfish, or they think that people don't really want to do it. The biggest thing with teams, when I am speaking with someone and I'm like, you just accomplished this, it might not feel that big, but I think there's room for celebration in there. Oh, no one might really want to do it. It's like, well, we don't have to all throw a bowling party. We can also stop for 5 minutes. And we just finished up the life cycle collaboration cohort last week, or with the latest cohort. And I mean, I love teaching this because it is idea sharing and authenticity, and everyone comes in vulnerable. And from day 1 to 3 months later, everyone is so there. And because we have that space, someone shared about how they celebrate with all their teachers, and they all have grape juice in their desks, and over the intercom, one of either a teacher or the principal or someone will get on the intercom. It's like, okay, it's grape juice time. Like, and there are ways to work in celebrations. We can do it.
We can do it. We can do it. We can do it. Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we are wildly almost at time here. So as you consider how you want folks to connect with you, Gregg, I will also invite folks who are here live to get your questions ready, pop them into the chat so we can hear from Gregg about people pleasing and the host identity and the collaboration coaching work that he does. And also super interested to hear how many of you have the host identity if you've done the quiz. So Gregg, where can these folks find you, whether they're on the call or listening after the fact? Where can they find you and your work?
My website, I've got 2 G's at the end of my name, so my website's really easy. It's GG Potter, ggpotter.com. You can check that out. I've got a podcast called 20-Minute Collaborations that's on everywhere you can get podcasts. So definitely, it's a fun 20 to 30 minutes, which Tanya, you will be on soon. It's a fun 20 to 30 minute podcast where the guest will tell a little story, and then I will ask questions from the story on how they collaborated, and then we will pull out lessons on how to create more impact with intentional collaborations. And we just released last week, in these next 3 weeks, we're releasing the episodes from the live show that we did in December. What I can do is something that's a lot of fun for conferences, for schools, for big, exciting celebrations for large organizations or smalls, is do a 20-minute collaboration salon where we'll have 3 to 4 interviews, and we'll do a lot of no fourth wall conversations with the audience, with the guest, and we can work around a theme. So we're just presenting that one from December. Anyway.
Love that. Thank you. Do you know that my phone always autocorrects? My husband's name is Gregg, 1G, well, 2Gs, but one at the end. And it always autocorrects to double G. So like, so many people now think that he is Gregg with 2Gs, because whenever I'm talking about him, my phone thinks I'm talking about you. So there we go.
Sorry, Gregg.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. Thank you so much for bringing your fantastic energy. I know it's very late in the day for you. You got lots of fun things planned.
There's still dinner and wine, and
yeah, I'm so delighted. So delighted. All right, folks. So we're going to open things up. This is just for those of you who are live here. Thanks, Karen. To ask your questions of our fabulous host, Gregg Potter. Let me see if there are any questions here. All right, so I do have a message in the chat. So go ahead and actually you can post your questions in the, so everyone can see. And Amber, let us know if you have had any behind. So how has this identity informed your work? How has this identity informed your work?
It's knowledge and data for me. I'm able to go in already having, when we know more about who we are, it helps us do what we're meant to be doing, or fulfill our purpose, or meet our goals. And so knowing that the host is such a piece of my identity, I'm able to go in and say, okay, like this is me. And there's a confidence. It's almost like, having a degree. Like, I have this degree, I know what I'm at, I know what I'm good at, and it helps push off the imposter complex a little bit.
Great. Okay. Thank you. All right, I'll go to the one that's live. Does the perspective of host influence how you define collaboration? And if so, in what way?
That's a really interesting question. I believe it does when it comes to, well, let me back up for a moment. When I talk about collaboration, in the life cycle of collaboration, a unbiased facilitator is so important. It's so important. So in that piece, the facilitator is also a host because they're holding space. However, that does not mean no one else can be a host at different times, whether it is a celebration or whether it's a segment of work, or, I believe just like power and love, multiple people can, it's infinite. Multiple people can host. Love is constantly there. Power can be had by everyone. So I hope that answered that.
I love that. Thank you. So another message here. This is interesting because I've had this before. Tanya, you mentioned Padma Lakshmi, but you didn't mention Oprah as a host. Why not? It's a great question. I didn't. I actually talk about Oprah as as the maven, as that identity, because of the way I feel like she's such a seer and like really pulls out different aspects of folks. But what do you think I'm missing, Gregg, about not naming Oprah as a host, even though she really is like, well, so much of what we remember about her? How would you say that she is a host?
I believe that she's more a maven and maybe a little bit of a healer,
Yeah.
because people definitely, she has that ability for people to just melt around her and work through something and feel like they're better because of it. So yeah, I wouldn't call it just because she was a host or is a
Yeah.
host, I
Yeah.
wouldn't call her a host. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually, I mean, can I just say I'm a great host? I'm not a great, like I'm not, I host groups very easily. I host parties very easily. I actually find this, like podcast hosting, really hard to do because I forget, because I'm so interested in like you yourself, I forget that there are other people here and that I have to draw out things that they might be interested in, not necessarily me. So I find that interesting. Okay.
That's funny because that's the opposite of me. Love I love to like pull all the information together and like, I heard you say this. Let's talk, dot dot dot.
Which is what Oprah is like super brilliant at. I mean, I'll say that, I will say that. I feel like I mean I've experienced that when I saw her live. That was I was shocked by how she was able to just sort of like be this hopper of information. Anyway, as an introvert chameleon, I mimic extroversion very well. I'm admiration of the host role. I will stick to my strength, which is there. Yes, you do that, you do that, you do that. And also like, so how, Gregg Potter, what do you think about like how can we bring more host energy into our world if we have a different identity that is more predominant? How would you invite people to bring more hosts into their world if they so desire?
I think it's just asking, calling in questions of what do people need from me right now, or what is needed of me. And especially as a, sorry, my word went to evangelist, but you use a different term, but like as the visionary, you are able to also see what people need, so that can pivot into a host I think very easily.
I would
Even when you're
absolutely.
faking extrovert.
Right. Okay, perfect. Beautiful. Well, we are over. I really want to be mindful of your time and everybody else. I'm so delighted that you're all here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope some of you will go do the quiz right now and then come back and join me and Asha Frost in an hour. Gregg, adore you. So grateful for your presence in the world. And thank you for joining me today. And just so much care and admiration for the human that you are. Wow.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for joining us.